What's up, guys? This is Wavey Thoughts and Talks. Today, I'm interviewing Richard, aka Early Morning Barking on YouTube. Everyone, go subscribe to Early Morning Barking on YouTube, and I'll have his Instagram tag below. He has borderline personality disorder and narcissistic personality disorder, or borderline personality disorder with narcissistic traits. He does an excellent job breaking down the two and how they kind of coincide for him and how they kind of cancel each other out sometimes. So it's a very intriguing interview. He has a YouTube channel, so I'm going to have that tag below. He also has an Instagram. I'm going to have that tag below. It was a very, very, very interesting interview, and it's one that is good to follow up with the last interview I did with Dr. Harper. So please enjoy. What's up, everybody? How you guys doing today? This is Wavy Thoughts and Talks. My name is David, but everyone calls me Wavid. I do a series on my YouTube channel where I interview people with different mental health conditions. The point of these is to destigmatize disorders and humanize people afflicted with them. The point of these is the best way to watch these is from an unbiased, non-judgmental point of view. What I'm trying to do is empathize with someone and put myself in their shoes. So with that being said, Rich, tell the people what you got going on.
Hi, everybody. So my name is Rich. I do the Early Morning Barking channel, and I have BPD and NPD. So that's mainly BPD with an NPD comorbidity, which, depending on which study you look at, can be anything between sort of 19 and 39% of people with BPD also meet the criteria for NPD. And it's quite a weird, fun ride. I've been like this for a while. I've been through therapy for sort of 3.5 years of group therapy, and I'm now on the other side of it. And just try and talk about it as much as I can. My channel is sort of my continued therapy now, I think.
Yeah, I first came across your channel about 2 years ago, and it was interesting to me because when I researched BPD, it was mainly just all you hear is she has this, she, or like it's kind of
Mm.
similar to when people have NPD, it's always like he. So it was interesting to see, okay, so there's guys out there with BPD, and so as I was watching your channel, that was one of the intriguing factors of it. But I always liked the way you were very real in your videos. I remember there was one video, it might be, I can't give you the exact title, it's about a year or two, and you were going through something at that time, and you were
Mm.
very you were talking about how you were a little emotionally dysregulated that week or something, and I can't remember exactly the whole thing, but I liked how you always kept it at least as real as you possibly can keep it for a whole audience of strangers you don't even know watching.
Yeah. I don't know why I don't mind doing that. To be honest, it does worry me sometimes. I get that a lot. People say, "You're very open and honest, aren't you?" And I just think, "Oh, I have nothing to hide and nothing to I'm not ashamed of any of this, so to speak." So I don't know if it's a problem with me that I just overshare or something
Yeah,
like that. That is a common BPD thing in
yeah,
itself, isn't it?
that's good. That's good though.
But yeah, I happily talk about this and what's going on. And I think it's the best way to do it.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Um, okay, so if you don't mind, what was your upbringing like? I'm trying to humanize these disorders and stuff, so it's good for people to understand what individuals' upbringings might be like, whether it was completely normal and there really wasn't much that going on, or it was a hellhole and and a lot of stuff was happening, whatever the case may be.
It was complicated.
Okay.
It was complicated. Now, it was one of those childhoods that on the outside, everything was lovely and wonderful. And had compared to a lot of people, I guess, a very privileged, comfortable childhood. We lived in a
Mhm.
nice house, we had nice things, we wore clean clothes, we ate good food, we went on holidays, etc., all of that kind of thing. It was great. But I did grow up with a parent who had, I mean, all of this is speculative and undiagnosed, but it's fair to say I was growing up with a parent with BPD themselves, and that this was a thing that has been sort of generational throughout my family history, and there was always that story of, well, if you think they're bad, then you should have realized what grandma was like, and if you think she was bad, then oh
Mhm.
gosh, you should have met great grandma, and
Yeah.
that sort of thing going back. And so it's become clear as I've sort of learned about myself and grown up with my own problems that this was just a generational thing, and I was the next one in line, you
Hmm.
know. Um, and so that growing up in that environment, I've grown up with all of the classic uh, walking on eggshell stuff that you get in that situation. Uh, and it brought with it all sorts of problems that you can very clearly root a lot of my problems back to sort of a lot of the BPD things, problems with sense of self, developing a personality, all that kind of developmental stuff that just goes straight back to particular incidents or continued events throughout childhood.
Hmm.
Um, and it's one of those things that you don't realize how. I'm one of those people that I didn't realize how screwed up my childhood was until I became an adult and told other people about it. And
Mm.
then, it's one of those. It seemed normal at the time. We certainly weren't physically abused in any way. There's, nothing like that. We didn't have any, there's nothing you could point to that was seen at the time as bad. But at the same time, yeah, we grew up with this tension, this fear, this constant state of alert. And that just escalated and escalated throughout my childhood until my sort of mid to late teens when it just reached um, horrific levels. Um, and knowing what I know about it now, I know where it came from. I know what that parent's motivation and what they were thinking, their fears, their worries, and how that was translating onto me. But that whole period of my life that's what became my sort of PTSD level event that I would point to as the root cause of NPD in
Mm.
adulthood. So yeah, childhood was a complicated thing.
Yeah, that was actually gonna be my next question. What do you think the root causes might be for this? And you kind of just went over that a little bit.
Mm,
But it resonates with me a lot when you say it's normal to me. I mean, it was normal to me. I didn't even realize that it was what I was going through was any different than anyone else until I started talking a little bit about it, and then people are like, "Wait, what happened to you when you were 10? What was going on at 15?"
yeah,
Like,
yeah, it's all that stuff. It was, funnily enough, it was the first time I met the crisis team as an
okay.
adult,
What's
and
the crisis team? I heard Dr. Harper talk about that. I'm assuming it's like a UK thing.
yeah, it's an NHS thing. So
Okay.
in theory, and this will, funding is low and inadequate, etc., all of this. So I don't know how people's experiences around the country will vary with it. But the theory is there is a number you can call that if you are on the brink of whatever, if you can't cope, if you need to talk to somebody right now, you can call the crisis team
Okay.
and you'll get through to a call center and speak to someone directly on the phone. And they have the ability to send out people to your house to make sure you're okay and deal with whatever.
Okay.
Um, and so there are, I had positive experience with the people that came out to the house when that was necessary, and less positive experience with the people on the phone. So I don't know. Experiences vary.
Yeah.
I've heard people will curse the crisis team as a thing, and yeah, no, they've helped me. I wouldn't criticize them too much, to be honest.
Okay.
But that's a thing.
Okay. Um, so you touched on it a little bit, but what do you think? All right. Well, I guess because for me, I mean, I know BPD, NPD, they're in the same cluster. And lots of times, like you said, they could be a comorbid condition depending on what type of statistics you're looking at. But they're also, I feel like they're two sides of the same coin. So it feels like to me they're a little bit, they're different, obviously. Um, what would you say? What would you say if for someone who's watching who has no idea what NP, what narcissistic personality disorder is or borderline personality disorder is? what would you, if you could just, kind of sum it up, what would you tell them that these disorders are?
These disorders are in some way a defense mechanism against trauma.
Okay.
That's the shortest sort of it's an oversimplification, but
Yeah.
that's what it is. I think they all play out in different ways, uh, but essentially that's what they are. NPD is a trauma response, right? That's
Mhm.
clearly a a response to feeling awful about yourself, your life, whatever it might be, and you put
Mhm.
up these walls of defense to make yourself think that you're amazing.
Yeah.
And BPD is very much the same way, only it's less upfront. It's more defeated.
Mhm.
It's more sort of I feel bad about these things that and I can't go on. And that's where the suicidal ideation comes in and all that sort of thing. It's much more broken down. Um, and so the two coexisting together brings some quite interesting changes to each one. I mean, sometimes they will egg each other on, sometimes they will cancel each other out. Sometimes, it's just very strange how they interact. So when I, talk to people like, Jacob and Tessa and etc., and hear from other BPD people, I'm not really 100% like either of them.
Mhm.
This combination of the two creates this other thing.
Mm.
Um, so I enjoy comparing myself to Blade. I am the daywalker that sort of I know what
I
like
love
I
those
know
movies growing up.
yeah I can hear my girlfriend looking at me and saying you're not like Blade. Stop it. I'm like Blade. No. In that I feel like I know some of the narcissism stuff can quite happily come out of me and flow through me quite easily. The Whereas some of the stuff like I know what it is and I feel it and it's in there, but the BPD side of things sort of do things to stop it coming out. Like I have too much guilt and shame.
Okay.
So one of the big popular well-known characteristics of NPD is that lack of empathy,
Mhm.
and a BPD characteristic is an abundance of empathy,
Mhm.
and you can't have both.
Exactly. That would be
um
my questions too.
yeah,
How does that work out?
well, quite simply, you don't have both. I'm fortunate enough to have, I think, the BPD over empathy thing. So
Mhm.
when it comes to the more dark narcissistic side of my brain, there's too much guilt and shame for me to be able to. I'm too empathic for
Mhm.
it. um
Okay.
I don't have that. I don't want to say, well, maybe coldness, that lack of empathy that can sometimes allow more narcissistic stuff to come out. So yeah, the combination of the two, there's so many different ways in which they interact. I kind of feel like I should start writing them down and do TikToks about them, but it's,
Oh yeah. I keep
you
telling
know,
myself I gotta start doing more TikTok videos to like promote my YouTube channel or whatever, but I never get I do have some little snippets up, but not a lot. I gotta start doing more. But
yeah,
yeah.
that's,
You
so yeah,
should though. You should. You
I
should.
should absolutely, I'll get on that.
It's an interest. Well, it's an interesting combination that I'm sure plenty of people out there have, but whether they're diagnosed with it or not. But
Yeah, it goes to show there's actually a lot of similarities between the different cluster B
mhm,
disorders, and that they are just all sort of kind of stuck together in various ways. They're all very similar, and they're all rooted in the same sorts of things. It's just they play out slightly differently.
yeah, I like that. I like that. Okay, so they're both very very stigmatized. What would you say are the biggest stigmas for both disorders that aren't true?
Wow, good question though.
Hmm.
I mean, the narcissism ones are the easiest ones to do because there's so many videos telling me what's wrong with me.
Yeah.
Um,
Richard, that's that.
you
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah.
that's a whole YouTube genre in itself. Everything that the narcissist does, and they are mostly, by and large, just wrong.
Hmm.
You know, anything that the thing I'm on a bit of a crusade about at the moment is anything that requires premeditation, like we're planning, like we've got evil plans and we know what we're doing. We don't know what we're doing from 1 minute to the next. We are winging all of this.
Hmm.
There's no evil plan behind anything. And so, sort of, I think one of the bigger myths is you just have to discount anything that you can assign premeditation to, which kind of wipes out most of those YouTubes about all the bad things that narcissists do, the gaslighting, the love bombing, etc. Yes, those things exist, but they aren't NPD characteristics or traits. They are something else
Hmm.
with much more psychopathy and that sort of thing mixed in. Um, and so we get assigned a lot of dark stuff that isn't us. The BPD side of things is a bit more difficult. The reason being is that we tend to, on the BPD side of things, we're a lot more sad, and it's a lot harder to attack us. And so there aren't as many videos like that. Um, but it's this idea that we're not capable of a lot of things. Like we're not capable of maintaining friendships, or we're not capable of being in relationships. That's just not true. We absolutely are capable of those things. Some of us might need work. We might need to go through therapy, or work on ourselves, and that sort of thing. But as far as being capable of it, yeah, absolutely.
Hmm.
We're fine. We just need to learn to mellow out a bit.
Yeah. When so to go into a little more in depth when you were talking about the we're not uh we're not people who is planning things and premeditation behind it. I think
Mm,
the hardest part for people to understand when it comes to that is because like you might lie about this, or you might do certain behaviors that they can't visualize themselves doing without it being premeditated.
mm.
But what I try to tell people is it's more of a subconscious or learned behavior than so much where it's kind of automatic. It's not like it's thought about it's not like it's thought about and it's like, okay, when this person they're not while you're at work, they're not at home thinking for 8 hours straight how they're going to continue to mess up your day or whatever. It's just kind of like
Yeah,
the way they are, the way their position and personhood is. There's certain things that kind of come out with that or come along with that. But it's not so much premeditated. Does it make it better or worse? I don't know. That's whoever wants to decide and judge. But
I accept that that looks like the same thing from the outside, but
mhm.
I think that difference in intent makes things massively different.
Yeah.
Um, there's so many of them I can think of. The big one being sort of one that comes to mind. Narcissists always like ruining a big event. Like if there's a big thing you're going to or a party, they'll always like to ruin it. And they'll do it by like saying something horrible to you just before you leave the house or something like that. As if we're like looking at our watch, like, so we're going at 8:30. I'm gonna tell her she looks kind of pudgy in that dress about 8:25. Yeah, that'll be great. Then you're like, no, we're not. And yeah, I've done and said dumb things and ruined events, but it's through being dumb and saying the wrong thing at the wrong time, or whatever. I never planned anything. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't get a kick out of it. And that's the sort of thing where people will, I can feel the comments now of, but people do that. And like, yeah, they do. Those people are horrible people, or they're suffering from some sort of dark triad further psychosis. This is not a narcissistic thing. We don't care enough about you to plan our day around you,
Mm.
is the thing. I don't care enough about anyone to hatch an evil plan. How,
Mm.
that's where I am with it. It's kind of like almost Like, how dare you think you're that special to me?
Yeah.
It's someone who's got the time to devote to messing up your day. That's not me,
Mm.
you
Okay.
know.
Um. Okay. So, with BPD, it's from what I've seen, it's mainly diagnosed for women. At least here in the States, it's really mainly diagnosed for women. Uh, would you? I'm not, and I don't, when you look at the nine symptom criteria, it's not like, oh, these are inherently women characteristics or traits or whatever. But for some reason, it was just maybe women present more like in a BPD type of fashion, depending on whatever they went through in childhood and life, and maybe men kind of seem to present more in an NPD fashion. But for you, would you what would you say it would be like for? I'm not saying that you have a whole army of people with BPD that you know or whatever, but
Mm.
from your own life, and now that you kind of know what's going on, you've gone through therapy for a while, do you think that it's more like 50-50, or do you think there's a gender bias there, or?
I think if we were able to accurately diagnose and look at 100% of the population, if we were actually able to get that correct figure on definitely who has what, I think we would probably see a fairly even gender split.
Mhm.
Um, I don't think I would say that I think the uh, BPD presents differently in men and women. I think the way, because of the way we're differently socialized, because of the different things that are available to us to express our emotions, I think men will present differently to women. So, for example, I think it might be more common that men rage and get into fights more than women do.
Mhm.
That kind of thing. Because for men, getting into a fight is much more of an option, one
Yeah.
way or another. That sort of thing. But I mean, look, I'm not a doctor. I don't know what the figures are, and any figures are a best guess. Um, but yeah, I don't know that there's anything about BPD in itself that would affect one group more than the other. Um, I think it's something we're absolutely all susceptible to.
Okay.
I think there might well be a gender bias in terms of men not presenting for mental health treatment. I think
Yeah.
men are probably far less likely to admit that there's anything wrong, whatever that thing may be,
Mhm.
from a mental health perspective. So I don't know. It's one of those things. There's gonna be a lot of factors involved
Yeah.
in sort of diagnosing and getting those figures.
Gotcha. Um, so when in your personal relationships, whether it's friendships or in relationships, do you ever feel like there that maybe your personality disorders or personality disorder and with traits of NPD, do you think that it causes difficulties in your day to day dealing with who you are, or I mean, well, maybe not today, but Richard before therapy.
Yeah, definitely. There is a whole. I have friends that could do a book on the things that I've done. I think if they all got together and collaborated, it would be a huge book. Um, there have been a lot of things from me over the years that now make me cringe. Some of them I've apologized for outright and that sort of thing over the years. Um, but yeah, a lot of my NPD especially came out in work environments, and I worked with friends a lot, and consequently, I think it was just massively horrible.
Mm,
Eventually, to all of them at some point, I'm very lucky that they're all still speaking to me.
mm,
You know, that's a lie. They're not all still speaking to me. Most of them are. And I get it. I've said and done some horrible things over the years, so it's definitely affected me in that way. And then from the BPD side of things, you see, this is how they sort of contribute to each other. So you have friends and you treat them badly because you're a narcissist and these things come out. And then your BPD takes over and starts making you worry that they don't really like you anyway. they're just putting up with you because you do all these horrible things. You've then got that you're making your own proof.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can start to run away with the paranoia about, well, they're just not really your friends. They do stuff without you, without telling you, etc., etc. And then that then feeds into the, well, I don't like them. I hate them now. So I'm going to say more bad things and all of that sort of thing. So I'm really, really lucky that I've got any friends at all, to be perfectly honest. And like I say, I'm not surprised that the people who I'm not speaking to probably don't want to hear from me.
Mm.
And getting, realizing that, getting over that that's the painful part of therapy, is realizing, oh shit, look at what I did. Because at the time, you're fine with all of it,
Mm-hmm.
right? When I fell out with people, I was right. I was doing the right thing as far as I was concerned every time. And it's not until you can stop and look back and realize, no, God, I had BPD and NPD, and look what I did. And that's just one of the most painful parts of it all.
Yeah. Yeah, that definitely sounds rough. There sounds like a lot of inner dialogue, a lot of inner dialogue going on, and a lot of, I don't know if rationalization is the word, but rationalizing their behaviors as in, but like in a negative way. Sometimes when I think of rationalization, I think of you're rationalizing things. I guess it would be rationalizing things in a positive way for your own uh maybe ego, or to make sure like, oh, I'm not wrong in this, and then coming up with reasons why
Mm.
you're not wrong in this. And even when, maybe that person was just, maybe that person wasn't mad, or maybe that person wasn't so bad, it's just in the moment you got to kind of convince yourself maybe that they were bad for you, so that
Well,
you feel bad later on.
it's the black and white thinking we get caught up in.
Hmm.
Everybody's really, really good, or they're really, really bad.
Yeah.
And so there's no middle ground. There's no room to say, well, I had this friend and he pissed me off and we had an argument, but we're cool now. There's no room for that.
Yeah.
You've done this. You've wronged me. Now you're all bad, and I must destroy you, or whatever
How
it
does
is.
the black and white thinking? For it's black for people watching black and white people with cluster B personality disorders. They have black and white thinking. It's also, I think the actual term is dichotomous thinking. Um, it's where everyone, like you just said, is all good or all bad. There's no gray area. So it's like when you're watching a movie and you're looking at okay, this is the main character, so he must be the good guy, and then you see the antagonist, and okay, this guy, now he's the bad guy. So for people watching, that's kind of lots of times how people with cluster B personality disorders might think, where it's either all good or all bad.
Mm-hmm.
For you, how does that present, or could you describe it in a little more in depth for people watching?
It presents in everything, absolutely everything. So everything is either the best thing or the worst thing. And this is people, this is objects, this is TV shows, movies, the sofa in my living room. Everything is either the best thing or the worst thing. I love it or I hate it. And we especially on the BPD side of things, we can move between the two in the blink of an eye. That's what we call splitting, where you think something's amazing, you have this split, and suddenly it's the worst thing. We most commonly do it with people because people give us a lot more to interact with, right? So I can find a reason to fall out with a person. Like they said that word. Did you hear the tone of voice they said that in? Or did you see the look on their face when they said that? Or they said hello to me last when we all turned up,
Mm-hmm.
clearly they hate me. And we can and that's it, we're done. And we can come back from that, but it can take, who knows, however long. I have some splits that end in a minute. I have some that started 10 years ago and are still going strong. Um, so, it's anybody's guess. And you can't do anything really to I've not found a thing. What I try and do is try and look at the gray areas, try and, you know, look at the nuance in things. And again, after therapy, that's a doable thing. I'm much more functional day to day. But before, it was I was either happy or rage.
Mm.
one or the other, which can't have been fun to live with.
Yeah.
In fact, again, knowing what I know from growing up, it wasn't fun to live with.
Mm. That I like yeah, sometimes I struggle finding words. I like the self-reflection right
Mm.
there. Not just the self-reflection, but being able to look at it from like a bird's eye, a God's eye point of view, being like, well, now I know it's not fun to live with it because I was raised in it, that type of thing. I like that.
Yeah.
It's hard to come across that with people in general. Doesn't matter, forget disorders or diagnoses, like just people in general. I do that all the time, and it's hard to come across that sometimes.
Yeah. And understand this is like a fairly recent revelation for me. That was a therapy based revelation. So over the last sort of 3 or 4 years. And I just repeated a lot of behavior without thinking about it that was behavior that I didn't want to live with growing up, and then I just made it again in my own house. It's not until getting that point of self reflection is quite difficult. That takes time and practice, and you have to really work at it. And that's what the therapy's for, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, so that would bring me to my next question. Uh, did you go through any type of specific therapy, or was it just talk therapy? Or for anyone watching who might have BPD or NPD, or they might know someone who does, I would not suggest someone who has BPD or NPD being like, yeah, you need therapy, you need to do this, you need to do that. For anyone watching, I wouldn't suggest that. I would have a nice, sensitive talk. But what kind of therapy did you go through?
Yeah. So I'm the same. I don't recommend any one particular type of treatment for all of this because there's so many different types and you have to find the thing that works for you.
Okay.
But I did group therapy. There is a name for what kind of therapy it was. I could not tell you for the life of me what it is.
Is it dialectical?
No.
No? Okay.
Right. It wasn't DBT. This was group therapy. This was me and other people who had similar problems to
Okay.
me,
Okay.
right? This wasn't specifically a BPD, MPD cluster B group. And that was never said to us, by the way. This is part of the experience. So much of it is never told to you
Mm-hmm.
because if they tell you, it makes it worse.
Mm-hmm.
So they at no point go, hey, you've got BPD. You should come to our BPD group for people who definitely have BPD,
Okay.
because then you will find a way to definitely have all 9 traits and develop BPD.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, you come to the group and people have similar problems. And we didn't all have the exact same set of problems, and they all came from different places, but there were every problem each of us had sort of overlapped with someone else. It was a very well put together group.
Okay.
Um, and so it was sort of up to 8 of us. That varied over the years because people come and go,
Mm-hmm.
and some people turn up and realize that's not what they need or whatever, and so people come and go. So up to 8 of us and 2 therapists in the room, and all the therapists are there to do really is sort of keep you on track to a certain extent. They don't try to influence where we're going with things and that sort of thing. They don't start a conversation. It was at the beginning of when the group first started, it was traditional that we would come in and just sit in silence for sort of 15, 20 minutes because the therapists never start. They never ever say the first word. So we would all just come in and sit there sort of looking at each other like, who's going to speak first?
Yeah.
And that would go on for sort of 15 minutes until we all settled down and got to know each other, that kind of thing. But that we would just talk about stuff. And occasionally the therapist would chime in with a, can you say more about that? Or, what about this thing that you said before? And, so there would be some guidance. But everyone I knew always seemed to think it was some sort of lesson that took place. I'd be asked, what did you learn in group this week? as if we were all sort of going for a lesson and that, get your workbooks out. Here's how you deal with having a favorite person this week. Write it down. And that's not it at all.
Okay.
So we would just talk. And as time goes by, you open up, you become more comfortable, and you can talk about bigger, heavier things and deal with those emotions and that sort of thing. And it was an experience that was just life-saving for me.
Good.
Just absolutely life-saving.
Good.
And yet at the same time, I can appreciate how it's not a thing for everybody. Other people need other things. But yeah, that 3.5 years was incredible.
All right. Good. From one person to another, I'm glad that you're in a better space now and you're not going through as much. I know it's there for people watching. There is no pill. There's no cure. There's no like, there's nothing that really makes it a 1,000% go away. I hear as long as you're in some type of treatment, I always recommend dialectical behavioral therapy. Someone who I was really close with who had BPD. I watched them do it for a year, and it
Yeah.
ups the negative symptom criteria in just a year alone started to drop or decrease. So I always recommend that. But
I've got a lot of time for it. I think for me personally, a lot of my stuff was very sort of emotional trauma based. And that was something I needed to work through to be able to get to the point to do the DBT style things. And I've sort of started to learn as I've gone on through making early morning barking that a lot of sort of advice I've given, things I've learned to deal with this stuff, are very DBT like
yeah,
in their nature.
when you said
And
yeah, there's like in DBT, there's like sometimes they do 2 sessions a week. I think one's like a group session and one is just a one-on-one type of thing. That's why I asked when you said the group, but
yeah,
yeah.
it's a much more practical thing. DBT, that there are workbooks for DBT, and it does involve writing stuff down and thinking about stuff. It's very logical and I don't know, very, very logical. I don't know where that sentence was going. Never mind. And whereas therapy is much more dealing with the trauma. And so, yeah, I think a good combination of both is probably a good thing. I suppose, depending on what you're going through individually.
Yeah. Okay. So this is one thing I can when I do these interviews, I try my best to empathize with people and try to, and I'm usually pretty good at it. I'm usually pretty good at trying to get an idea of what someone's perspective might be and trying to put myself in their shoes. But one thing that I try to put my head around is the whole aspect of wearing a mask. I know all across Cluster B, people they describe wearing some type of mask. I know Cluster B Milkshake. She has a little mask on her little lamp, and in the
Yeah,
background,
yeah,
I interviewed Emmy Thomas recently, who was she's the author of Confessions of a Sociopath: A Life Spent Hiding in Plain Sight. And on her book, there's a mask. You look up things about BPD, and you hear about lots about this mask-like aspect. For me and for the people watching, but mainly for me, how would you describe the whole mask aspect of things? Like, where do you think it stems from, and what exactly is it?
well, it's a protective barrier, right? It's the face we show to the world. And so in MPD, it's the confident, grandiose side of things. It is, for me at least. It's that, look at me, aren't I great? That's a mask. I'm playing the role of somebody who thinks he's great, because inside I know I'm not. And in the same way with BPD, you're very often playing the role of a happy person, of somebody who is fine.
Mm.
you know and also, we BPD masking becomes a much more complicated thing, actually, because we have one of the big characteristics is a lack of self, a lack of identity and personality, and we tend to sort of take that from external sources, and we, you know, refer to that as masking as well. We're putting on this mask of this other person because
Mm,
that other person has the traits that we wish we had, so we can pretend to be that person for a bit, um, which, you know, leads to us appearing sometimes quite odd, I suppose, that we can sort of change our personality, very chameleon like to a
mm-hmm.
certain extent. Um, you know, and that's where the extreme empathy comes into play as well. If you can use that empathy to sort of latch onto what somebody else is doing and thinking and feeling and get that from them, because we're not necessarily doing that ourselves in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah. From my experience, when it comes to BPD and empathy, it's either all and not, I don't mean 100% of the time. I just mean it's either all there or completely, like, it's all there to the max or it's not there at all. I've seen, and it could be different for other people, but I mean, just literally for one person, like at different time periods. So like today, at this point, you know, I'm extremely empathetic. You know, you might be crying over a movie that you're watching or a documentary about something really sad. You know, you might be crying, you might be really in your feels, and then sometimes it just kind of switches, and it's like there's nothing really there. It's like there's no feeling for the person that you're in a relationship with, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah. I mean, try and think of it like, you know, like the volume sliders on a mixing desk and a whole load of, like in a recording studio.
Mm-hmm.
If you think of each slider as a different cluster B trait,
Mm-hmm.
and they can go up and down, and you can do different combinations of them, and different ones at different volumes on different days. That feels very much like how it functions, you
Okay.
know. And which ones are going depend very much on my emotional state and my environment and what I'm doing at the time, what is required of me at the time. All kinds of stuff comes into play.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's all there, but it's all at different volumes at different times.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I want to switch it up for a second because I try to humanize disorders and people with them. So I don't want people watching this and be like, "Oh, this is Rich. He only has BPD and NPD." What kind of hobbies do you like? You know, what's your favorite things to do? You know, what kind of you know, what brings you enjoyment in life?
All kinds of things. I have a dog I spend a lot of time with.
Is he actually, like, what is that? A lab, a black lab?
Paisley the Black Lab. He's the dog on the early morning barking
Oh,
logo.
okay, okay. I didn't
Yeah,
know that. Continue.
yeah. He's the dog that's barking at the beginning of videos. That sort of scares a lot of people off, apparently.
No,
Um,
I always liked it. I always liked it.
yeah, I'm trying to get a recording of him making a slightly less aggressive bark. Just something that's just not quite get out of here. I'm going to eat you. You know, because that was the bark that he did that I recorded. I think he was shouting at someone out of the window onto the street. So there's a lot of that. I play, you know, I play video games. I watch a lot of movies. Um, you know, I have a lot of history with nerd stuff back from my podcasting network days. Um, Big, huge Star Trek fan. Um,
Star Trek over Star Wars.
oh yeah, definitely,
Okay, okay, okay. I never liked the
definitely.
Star Trek. I was born in '91, so Star Trek was kind of like it was around in the '90s, but I kind of, for some reason, I kind of fell more into the Star Wars line of things. I think it might have just been people in my family liked it more and would play it on the TV around me. So,
Yeah, Star Trek was always a bit more accessible to me when I was a kid because it was on TV. And
mm-hmm,
at that time, Star Wars was three movies and
mm-hmm,
that was
yeah,
it, you know.
exactly.
Whereas, you know, Star Trek was rolling with loads of stuff going on. And it wasn't until sort of the Star Wars prequels came out that things really started heating up. I had this debate on TV once. This was a thing that we did a Star Trek versus Star Wars podcast once and got invited to go and do a thing for Sky Movies where we would have like a little. They were playing all the Star Wars and Star Trek movies on the movie channel, and they intercut it with us doing little Star Wars versus Star Wars debates on
Yeah,
TV, which was very cool.
You used to do like a radio show or like a podcast show, right? Something
Yeah.
like
So
that.
before I did YouTube, I ran a podcast network for sort of 15 years.
Mm.
Started way back in 2005. We were some of the first podcasts that just nobody remembers now, which is quite a shame. But I
Oh,
don't know. It's how these things go. They get forgotten about, you know.
yeah.
But yeah, that was we did a lot of. I've done podcasts on all kinds of things over the
Mhm.
years, mainly a lot of TV and movie stuff, but you know, lots of tech stuff and other things like that.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So, you said you have a girlfriend now. How long you guys been together?
Oh, we've been together for sort of oh, 2.5 years, something like that.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
So
That's
things
nice.
are good there. Things are good
That's
there.
nice.
Um, it's nice being in a relationship post therapy. There's
Hmm.
a whole lot less crying, which is so much better. You know, it's 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 very refreshing, to
Okay.
be honest. And it's it's so much, like I say, to be in a relationship after therapy, knowing that I'm not doing all of those negative behaviors that hurt various people over the years and that sort of thing. It's a much nicer feeling.
Good. Good. I'm happy for you for that. So there's a light. There's a light on the end, on the other side of the tunnel.
Oh,
For
absolutely.
for people
I
watching, and life might not be
Yeah.
perfect. It's never perfect. Not at least not for me. But there's a light on the other side of the tunnel for anyone watching.
I've been at that low point, right? I've been at that point where I'd been in so much pain for so long, and I felt like there was never going to be any help. There was never going to be anyone who could fix it, that it could be fixed. Forget it. I was just going to be in pain, and reaching that point of the feeling like the only way you're going to end it is to really end it,
Mm.
and going through that experience, that those horrible dark experiences that we all have that end up with the police coming and bringing you home and that sort of thing. I've been there.
Hmm.
I've felt that. I know what that's like, and it's done with now. Right? I was wrong about there not being help. I was wrong about it being a forever thing. There was help. There were people who could help. And every little day, every little bit of happiness since then, I am just so much more grateful for, because it happened at all, and it's everything. Everything is worth making it through for, and you can absolutely make it through it.
Good. I like that. I like that. So these are two questions I ask everyone I interview. It doesn't matter what kind of thing you got going on. The first question would be, how do you view people and the world?
I do have the and I do wonder if Jacob talked to you about this in the same way as well, actually, now, because I've had this conversation with him. I have a hierarchical view of importance and significance of people. And what I think of you depends where you fit on that hierarchy.
Okay.
Um, and the way I explain it is mine works like a sitcom. It's a sitcom called Rich. I'm the main character. It's about me. I'm at the top of the thing. I'm in every episode. Every storyline is about me, and all the
I'm in every
characters.
scene.
Yeah, all the characters are there to support me and my jokes. That's it. But then we have a regular cast, right? You've got your George, Elaine, and Kramer. You've got
Yeah.
all of that sort of thing, and they're in every episode too. They're really important, but they're not me,
Yeah.
but they're crowd pleasers. They're there all the time. And then things filter down. You've got my parents who turn up maybe every 5 or 6 episodes and say crazy things and then leave again. And
Yeah.
you've got my sister who comes for a visit once a season, and that's always a weird crazy episode that goes off the rails a bit. And that and so we filter all the way down into you're an extra in the background with no lines. I don't care about you. You just
Mm,
you might as well be a tree. You
mm,
are just set dressing at that point. And yeah, people move up and down in terms of significance. There's many levels.
mm.
Um, and that's how I organize people.
That I love that analogy. Not only because it was kind of funny, but because I've heard, at least when it comes to people who have NPD, that they view themselves as like that literally what you said, the character of their own TV show. And it's funny. It's funny. When I was really little, I don't think I've ever said this before. When I was really little, I must have been like in third grade, and I was in class, and I remember I must have been literally psychotic or suffering from some type of psychosis. But I would look at the invisible camera in my head about like whatever's going on. I can't give you an example. It's been over 20 years now, but I would look at the camera in my head and I'd be like, yeah, I'm the main character or whatever. Like very, very similar, but I guess I never went past that. There's only that last time I ever remember doing something along the lines of that. But
Yeah.
like in my head, I'll like look at the invisible camera type of thing.
I don't know where, I mean, I consumed a lot of TV as a kid.
Me
Um,
too.
and continue to as an adult. And that way of organizing the world and seeing things in that way just makes sense to me.
Mm.
Like everything is easy and straightforward on TV. Um, and everything makes sense. And so I find it just a lot easier to organize the world in that way.
I have a very similar way of looking thing. It's not so much it would I guess it would be who's important to me, but not so much who's better or worse or I guess I could say that caring about them. It's kind of like I have and I guess I wouldn't necessarily put myself at the top or the main character maybe, but the way I view it is like I have probably about three or four really close friends that I've known for probably over a decade. Just about every single one of them I've probably known about a decade. Another one of my friends I've gotten close with over the past few years. But there are people that I kind of consider like I would do anything for these people. Like
Mm-hmm.
if well, no matter what, if they call me and they're about to get into a fight down the street, I'm there. Or if they need a ride or whatever the case may be, like I'm right there. And then there's people who I'm cool with, who like, I vibe with. I guess we're kind of like friends, or we are friends. Not that we're kind of like we are friends. And then I guess there are people who are just kind of like acquaintances and stuff like that. I mean, I got a lot of love for people that I know, especially with lots of my coworkers at my job. I got a lot of love for those people. But yeah, it's similar, but I guess it's just the I don't know. I can't. I am when you're talking about people who are important to me. Obviously, I would be the main figure there.
Yeah.
But oh,
With,
I don't know how to describe it exactly.
with,
But
with
it's
friends,
similar.
I have this question that I always ask myself about to sort of rate them in terms of importance, I guess. And it's a bit morbid, but it's like if they turned up at your house at 4 a.m. with a body in the boot of their car, what would your first words be?
Yeah,
Because that ranges all the way from, oh my God, what have you done? I'm calling the police right now, to, okay, we'll ditch this thing, then you can tell me all about it.
you
There's
know
this
what?
whole range of friendship here.
I like that. I like that analogy a lot actually. Because yeah, I'm not gonna lie. There's a
You know,
I'm not gonna self-incriminate myself here, but that's a good way. Because if it's someone I just kind of met like two or three times, they're showing up to my house with a body, I'm gonna be like, "Whoa, what's
yeah,
going
it's
on
like, what
here?"
are you doing here? And
If it's
then
like my
there's other,
brother or my sister, or like or one of my really best friends, then yeah, we might have to get rid of this. But
yeah. And for legal purposes, of course, I would
yeah,
always contact the authorities in that
of course,
scenario.
of course.
But yeah,
Okay, so the next question: how do you think people view you?
oh God, I
No, hold
have
on, hold on, hold on,
no
hold on.
idea.
But I guess more in your personal life, because people watching, they might not be able to relate to the
Hmm.
YouTube aspect of it. So how do you think people view you? I guess in your personal life, or yeah, yeah, just I mean, you could bring in the YouTube aspect too if you want, but
That might be the hardest question you've asked me.
hmm,
Um, because God, yeah, I don't know if I can answer that adequately. I I I assume there are definitely people who love and care for me. But in terms of what people by and large think of me about the kind of person I am, I honestly don't know. And I'm torn between that. The BPD element of things drags me towards, of course, people don't like you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they have a low opinion of you. You're always whining and moaning about things that you're just hard work. And then the NPD side is like, they think you're awesome. But the therapy shows you, well, they don't really think that. You just think that they think you're awesome. So I don't even have that support anymore. And so honestly, if I, what do people think of me? I honestly don't know. People seem to like me when I meet them. I try to be nice to everyone, that sort of thing. But I'm willing to accept that there are a wide range of opinions about me, depending on how you have encountered me.
Hmm.
I think that there will definitely be some people who are not that happy about my continued existence, and other people who think I'm amazing and wonderful. So I don't know.
There you go. That's probably a good answer. No, honestly, I asked that question, but I don't really know exactly how people view me either. So, it's a very
Yeah.
weird question to ask, especially I guess with someone who has possibly personality disorder. But every time I ask that question, people are kind of like, "Wait, hold on, I don't know." And then some people would just be like, "I don't really care. I don't care." And other people would be like,
Oh yeah.
I asked Jacob and Tessa the same questions, and it was similar responses. Now, I'm not really
I
sure how people view me.
I'll vary on how much I care about what they think of me.
Okay,
And by and large, I'm not going to change who I am and what I do and all of that sort of thing just to please somebody else. Certainly not anymore. Um, and so yeah, I don't know. There are definitely times when it does affect me what people think of me, but not maybe less so than your average person.
gotcha, gotcha. All right. Um, okay, so we're almost on an hour now, and I like to make it somewhat. If I make it too long, I feel like people don't want to, they're like, oh, they're overwhelmed with the amount of time. But I have two more questions. My first question would be, for anyone watching who, of course, there's lots of people they think just because they don't like their ex partner or because they might have gone through some differences in opinions and things like that, that their ex partner is a narcissist or whatever. They did without even knowing exactly what NPD is, or not even just narcissism by itself, without even really knowing what it is. They just throw that label around a lot.
Mm.
So, but for people that are watching, they might have a tough forget the label of what. This question is always hard for me to ask because I try to be very politically correct with things. But what advice would you give to someone who is in a relationship with someone who's showing toxic kind of traits, or maybe they're with someone who kind of does fit if they do their own enough of their own research, it does kind of fit the molding of someone with NPD or BPD? And depending on the diagnosis, your answer might be different on what they should do. But what do you think they should do for their own lives to make things better, whether it's stick with them or not stick with them, or
Right. I think by and large, it's difficult to say stay with them or don't stay with them because there's such a wide range of how all of these traits could be coming out of that person that staying with them might be dangerous. It might not be. I don't know. That's something that the individual has to make their own decision about. What I think is most important is that the neurotypical partner in the relationship set good boundaries and acts, with regards to how they are willing to be treated, what they are willing to put up with, and to enforce those boundaries. If those boundaries are overstepped, be prepared to leave, because if they're overstepped once, they're going to be continually overstepped. And I think you also need to justify staying with someone who is displaying serious problems. You need to see forward progress. You need to see them seeking help, getting help, and the benefits of that help. Things need to be moving in a positive direction. Otherwise, you are just going to be stuck in the pain that you're stuck in forever. And you won't be stuck in it forever. You'll be stuck in it till somebody explodes in a really bad way.
Mm.
Because these things don't just go away.
Mm.
And ultimately, I think I understand, relationships have different levels of seriousness of how linked you are. Someone married with children is going to find it a lot harder to leave a relationship than someone who's been dating someone for 6 months. If you're at the dating someone for 6 months end of the spectrum and they're displaying toxic traits and stuff like that, why would you stay? That's my other why at that point leave now, just you're not even breaking up at that stage. That's just, I don't want to date you anymore, right? That's not the same as I need to leave and I'm taking the kids and we'll file for divorce. That's a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
But I've never understood from people who've been like, I've been dating this girl for 3 months, whatever. It's like, well, leave.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, and I don't know if it's going to help you understand at all. What I'll say is it's kind of more like you have all these memories of this person laughing and giggling and saying they love you and all this in your head, and it makes it really hard to just say goodbye to that. Now, for someone who might not have the close ties exactly or whatever, it might be hard to understand, or that's able to make those type of connections or whatever the case may be. But yeah, it's more just like, for me, at least for me, it's the memories. I have the memory, even if it's only 6 months, I have a bunch of good memories in my head of this person. And I do genuinely, whether I like this person, I love this person, whatever. I mean, if I like this person, I'll kind of be more likely to be like, okay. I mean, nowadays I won't accept any type of negative behavior, and I'll spot it right from the jump. I've had a few cases where I was like, "Yep, I'm out. I'm out. I'm not doing this." But yeah, I liked your answer a lot. I like that with the boundaries. People need to set up strong boundaries for themselves. I like that a lot. I just tell people, if you're going through any type of abusive situation, whether it's financially, sexually, mentally, emotionally, whatever, verbally, all these different types of abuse, then just do what you can to get yourself out. It's,
yeah,
like you said,
absolutely.
it's not going to change on its own. You need to see the benefits of them getting help as well.
Yeah.
So that's one I haven't heard yet, is you got to be able to see the benefits of it as well, not just, okay, they're working on themselves a little bit. No, like, they need to work on themselves, and you need to see the benefits of it, the fruit of the labor, whatever. But yeah, okay. And then my last question, for people who have borderline or the narcissistic personality disorder, uh, what advice would you give them to help better themselves? If they, most people with BPD, they want to seek help, they just don't know where to go. They don't even know what's going on within themselves usually. But what advice would you give them?
I mean, in terms of getting help, I mean, that depends massively on where in the world you live. For me, it was a case of going to see my doctor and then getting a referral to a psychiatric specialist, etc., etc. And your mileage may vary on how easy that is to do and how ready they are to give you that referral and all that kind of thing. And of course, we're all faced with, given the option of, well, you can pay money for it, that kind of thing. You can get private therapy and that sort of stuff. And so my main advice would always be seek professional help where possible. However, also, the most important thing for you to work on is yourself. That if all of these things are defense mechanisms, if they're all trauma responses, whatever, then we need to get to the root of that. And I have found that the most foundational thing we can all work on is our sense of self and being happy with us, who we are as a person. And then everything else just starts to slot into place. So if I was to suggest that one thing to start working on, it would be to start making your life what you want it to be.
Okay.
Going out more, doing that hobby, seeing friends more, making friends, all that kind of thing. Because that feeling of being a complete person will just, you, once you feel happy and confident and complete, you don't need to hide that person anymore.
Okay. Okay, I like that. I like that. All right. Thank you for getting on my channel. I really appreciate you coming on. I would love
It's been a delight.
yeah, I would love to do one of these again. Just wait 1 second. I'm gonna hit the record button. By the way, he already mentioned his YouTube channel, but if people watching, he has a YouTube channel and an Instagram is going to be tagged below.